Alrighty, everybody, we are live, episode 3 of the Fantasy Consultant. We're a couple minutes early because we're going to let the audience build a little bit right now, kind of share it on our pages, which I'm doing right now, so we can get even more people engaged and on the air as we're doing this. But we're here, of course, with Shamus, so start getting those questions in.
Good morning,
as
everyone.
We share this out. Absolutely. Thursday mornings, you know who we're going to be and who we're going to be with, so hopefully you're tuning in as always. So let's let that audience build for a couple more minutes. We got another minute till 10, and we're going to dive right in starting then. But if you like what you're seeing, share it out so we get more people seeing this. I'm sharing it right now on my page. And we want, again, as many questions as possible. Share. Here we go. Alrighty. So again, this is episode 3. Thanks for the like already. I think that came in from Jimbo, faithful viewer. Love your viewership, Jimbo, every single week. Make sure, again, if you guys have questions, again, fantasy football related, or if it's anything related at all that you want Shamus to talk about, we love that. We want to get more and more questions for the end of the show for our mailbag. Today is episode 3. We're going to be talking about late round draft strategy and the best sleepers to go on. So absolutely crucial to nail those late rounds of your draft and maximize the upside of your bench. That's what we're going to focus on. Episode 1, we got Shamus's fantasy baseline. So if you missed that, it's a great entertaining episode to kind of see where he started, what he needs to learn. That helped us kind of determine what we wanted to go with for the rest of these episodes. And then episode 2, we talked a lot about just holistic draft strategy, making tiers, drafting based on supply and demand, so quarterback strategy, tight end strategy, and just making sure you side with talent over need as much as possible, not taking Eric Ebron in round 6 because you don't have a tight end.
It wasn't great.
It was not great. So these are all strategies that we've talked about, Shamus is learning from. And one thing he really wanted to focus on, though, is the late round strategy, which I think is absolutely incredible. It's crucial for drafts, so glad Shamus wanted to focus on that. We're going to dive into that, but first, Shamus, how you doing? How's everything going?
It's great. Happy National IPA Day.
Is it National
today.
IPA
Yeah.
Day? Oh, okay. Are you a big beer guy?
I am a big beer guy.
Nice.
I love beer.
Me
21st
too.
Amendment is my favorite beer.
Which
But
one's that?
Hell or High Watermelon.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's fabulous.
Never had that one. Never had a
every
watermelon.
day I
beer.
wake up, I always look at what the national holiday is. So if you ever want to know, just ask me.
Every Thursday, we're going to tell you what the national holiday is, IPA Day. So everyone out there, hopefully it's 10 a.m. You're cracking into some IPAs while you watch this.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what my favorite IPA is. I mean, Lagunitas is just like the standard classic of the beer.
Yep.
This brewing company. Have you ever had Trogs Brewing?
No.
Oh, they make some great ones. I think they're based out of Pennsylvania. They always have them on tap up at Fibbers, which I got kicked out of Saturday, so that's a story for another time. But they usually have some great IPAs. Trogs makes a few. What's he saying? It's Tom Brady Day. Oh, it's Tom Brady Day, says Chris, so they can hear us.
Right,
Just
Jimmy, that is correct.
It is Tom Brady's birthday.
Wear my Packers shirt.
Thank you for the reminder.
It's on Tom Brady's birthday, and as I'm draped in him.
Oh, Brady's birthday. Happiest, 40th birthday to the greatest man alive, the GOAT of football, the GOAT of life, Tom Brady. We love you. At the RSJ, I don't know how much love you have for him. Best player of all time, Rodgers. We're not even going to get into that yet. We can maybe debate that later. But Brady, best of all time, the best best looking 40-year-old man I've ever seen in my life. So. Just Tom Brady, GOAT, love you, thank you Chris for that reminder. But National IPA Day as well, so again, crack into those IPAs as you're watching this. But yeah, how's the dance, how's everything going?
Dancing is good.
Yeah. Is it tough in the summer? I feel like it's just like so hot out.
It is. It's tough to be inside, all day long.
Yeah.
Teaching people to dance in a bow tie and layers and socks and shoes.
Oh man.
Pouring sweat and hands all over people's bodies. It makes me sort of want to just be outside and at the beach.
I feel like that's like the next Facebook Live show we got to do is just live in studio. Shamus just doing the instruction, just dying inside with his bow tie.
You need earplugs.
It sounds awesome, but Hey, I could never do it. I don't know how you do it. So.
We'll see. Future episode. The wolf will learn.
I'll learn how to
will
dance.
learn.
Absolutely. Hey, I've been, bashing you enough on the show, so I think it's only right for you to repay the favor at some point. Maybe we can put something on our fantasy football when we match up this year. It's some sort of bet about what dance I have to learn or something like that.
Certainly.
We'll figure that out. That'll be very entertaining. But again, for those of you that are just jumping in, this is going to be episode 3. You got to tune into those first 2 if you missed them. Episode 3, we're covering the late round sleepers, that late round overall draft strategy. I know this on your application was one of the main questions you had.
Yes,
and it's crucial. It's crucial for everyone to know. So let's dive right into it. And then again, questions. Let's build it up. Let's get a good mailbag going today. So we can answer some fun stuff at the end here. But late round draft strategy. So I am 100% on the side of you have to maximize your bench, the ceiling of your bench. Do you know what I mean when I say like the ceiling of a team?
Maximum potential?
The maximum potential, the upside, how many points they can score. I'm not worried about those guys like Jeremy Hill and Matt Forte, who I know their names, but are truly just, I know their ceiling is very capped. I'm never going to probably start those guys because they're never dependable in terms of when they're going to score and their output. So maybe, yes, they'll score some more points than this rookie who could boom or bust, but that rookie who could boom might end up actually being a legitimate fantasy player for me some way down the road if a starter gets hurt or things like that. So I'm looking to maximize that upside with my late round picks. You've already got your starters. You have everything all set. So let's get the guys, we call them penny stocks at RSJ, that you buy for a penny that could absolutely explode, or the late round lottery tickets a lot of people call them. I don't waste my time on the low ceiling, high floor guys. I just want all upside. Even if they end up being a bust, cut them and pick someone up off the waivers. So that's kind of the mindset I take to late round drafting is maximize that ceiling. You want to just get the highest upside guys. Does that kind of make sense for late rounds?
Sense.
And with that in mind, we can kind of run down some names that I think maximize that late round upside. So these are all guys. I kind of compiled a list. They're in that draft guide that we have. Should have plugged that at the beginning, but we have a fantastic market report. Again, if you haven't downloaded that, rotostreetjournal.com/draft guide, free, absolutely free. You'll also get a free August update where we update the draft guide with new values and bargains and new penny stocks that are emerging through training camps. So you're going to get 2 free draft guides, all for just your email to join a list where we give you exclusive content. So make sure you join on that list. And I have a list in there right now called the top penny stocks. I got 20 names on that list. We're not going to give you all 20 on air, otherwise we're giving you the stuff for free. But I can talk about some of my favorites. If you have some ideas for guys that you're like, would this be a good late round pick? Throw some names out to me as well, and we'll go from there. But let's start with quarterback, because I always wait on quarterback. We talked about that millions and millions of times. And I can even sometimes wait to take my starter all the way in round 12, 13, because a guy following that I really love is Tyrod Taylor. So Tyrod Taylor of the Buffalo Bills finishes the QB8 last year. And this was despite losing Sammy Watkins for a good portion of the year's top weapon, despite taking the fewest pass attempts in the league last year, he still finishes QB8. So that's a guy that finishes QB8 because his rushing upside is just so enormous.
Right.
He rushed for almost 600 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns last year. And they're talking about getting him on more rollouts and different things this year. Rich Dennison, he loves to get the QBs on bootlegs, and then oftentimes Tyrod could scramble, get those 20, 30-yard runs, just racks up points that way. Loves a great connection with Sammy Watkins, so hopefully he stays healthy both in contract years. Tyrod Taylor, a guy I really love as a late-round QB. Is there any other guys you've kind of have on your radar for late-round QBs or different things?
Well, I don't think I have it that planned out in my mind.
Because you always go Rodgers early, so you're not even used to this whole late round QB range,
yeah,
right?
the late round is a little new to me. So definitely, there's, I think I can think of more of like the top quarterbacks versus those that are more QB8, QB 10, or those kinds of things.
Right, and that's good that we're talking about them because again, we've talked so much about waiting on quarterbacks being essential because of the opportunity cost, the supply, demand, all those things we talked about last episode. If you missed it, make sure you tune in. Great holistic draft strategy, episode for all that. But again, you want to start knowing those names and educating your names. Tyrod Taylor, put it on your radar as a very late round guy. Phillip Rivers, a guy that isn't necessarily a penny stock because he goes in round 10, around 9. So I try to, say penny stocks are later, 12, 13, 14. But a guy who is going way later than he should. We actually had a guest on our podcast last night that predicted Rivers will be top 5 QB this year. He's going to have the Matt Ryan-esque season and just blow up, which he isn't in a run-heavy system under Anthony Lynn, but he's got Tyrell Williams, a great explosive deep threat. He's got Keenan Allen returning from injury. Hunter Henry could take a next step. So Phillip Rivers, a guy that just always seems to throw for 4,500 yards and 25, 30 touchdowns that goes in round 9 or 10. I love him as a potential high floor guy. I know I'm talking about all ceiling. He's got a pretty good ceiling, but his floor is just so high that you can then take one of these high ceiling but maybe lower floor guys like Tyrod Taylor, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, whoever might fall. I like pairing those guys up as a late round QB.
Where would you put Cam Newton? That was a name that I was coming to my mind.
I believe ranks right around my QB 11 or so right now.
Okay. So
which is, he's tricky, yeah. Because he's coming off 2 years ago, the #1 fantasy player. He was an absolute monster.
Right.
And but that was also, 2016, you kind of exposed his weak mentality where he lost his swag, he was out of games, and just, you could see how inconsistent he is. So it's tough to rank him any higher than 10, as much upside as he does have because of the rushing abilities. He's talked about, you let a lion roar. I'm Cam Newton, I'm going to run no matter what my coach says. So he's going to keep running, which is great. I love Christian McCaffrey, the guy they added. Curtis Samuel, another good weapon they added. This higher percentage quick strike attack they're going to be building. Seems, his short game accuracy hasn't been great, and he hasn't been great throwing to running backs historically. But I think that's also pigeonholing people. They're using his past history against him. He's never had a weapon like McCaffrey or a weapon like Curtis Samuel. So this offense could benefit him less, long developing deep throws to Kelvin Benjamin jump ball situations, and more just high percentage, let the running back do the work after he catches the ball. I like that. I like that system for Cam. I think the offense as a whole is going to rebound a bit. So I like Cam Newton. He goes a little bit higher, though, than where I have him. He's ranked kind of QB7 range by the experts, which I think is a little bit higher than some higher floor options like Derek Carr and guys that I love.
I would agree.
Yeah, so, but if he falls, the ceiling, especially if you compare him with a Rivers, in case he does have another head case season and sucks again, it's great to have that type of ceiling. That's the type of guy we're talking about, maximizing your ceiling. I would love Cam Newton as my QB2 because he could become the #1 scorer in fantasy again. Do I think that will happen? No, I wouldn't have him down at QB11. Right. But there is that potential. So that's a good example of a high ceiling guy that you can balance out with, like a guy with Phillip Rivers. So that's quarterbacks. And again, I love waiting on quarterbacks. Carson Palmer, another guy going undrafted right now, who was just a couple years ago the QB5 in Bruce Arians' explosive scheme. Some great weapons. John Brown's looking fully healthy again. Yeah. He's a guy that last round you could take a flyer on. I could totally see being, that last round QB that becomes a viable QB1 this year. So Carson Palmer, another late round QB penny stock, I really like. Running backs, there's tons of names. One of my favorites actually was at Patriots camp yesterday, which was awesome. Got to see this guy in action, and that was James White. Okay. And it was very clear, Mike Gillisley wasn't practicing at camp yesterday, so that was unfortunate, but it was very, very clear that James White is going to see a role whether Gillisley's there or not. And yeah, if you see some good questions coming up, just start keeping track of those. We'll get to the mailbag, of course. But James White, a guy who very clearly in that Super Bowl, I think he set a Super Bowl record with like 12 catches. We're not saying he's going to have 12 catches every week, but I think he did a good job, and Mike Reese wrote about this, Ryan Hannibal's talked to us on air, solidifying himself as that third down back for the Patriots. And that's, a very viable role from Kevin Fox, Shane Vereen. They've always had a third down running back that catches, 30, 40, 50, oftentimes 60, 70 balls in a season. And that in PPR leagues especially is highly valuable. Right. And yesterday at practice, James White was getting peppered over and over, running deep wheel routes, all these interesting things. So he's going to be a high usage player in a very explosive offense. And I think he's going right now at 140 or so. I have him up at 75, 80 range. So I think he's a viable flex starter, being drafted as a low-end bench player. James White, a guy I love, and not getting nearly the love that he deserves from the fantasy community right now. And one other running back, and then we'll see if you have any names or guys you're like, is this a good pick or not? So try thinking some that you might have a question about. But another guy I love, do you know who Thomas Rawls is for the Seahawks? So I personally hate Eddie Lacy this year. I mean, I don't trust a guy that gets, blows up every offseason, doesn't take his job seriously.
Unfortunately, agree as well.
Yeah. So he left the Packers now on the Seahawks. So you know Lacey very well, and you saw how big he got last year. Not the most physically fit guy.
Yeah. I remember a great podcast where there was a great fantasy reading for Mr. Lacey.
Oh yeah, his tubby ass
and
or something
people
like that.
talking about his eating habits and getting into a sauna and
Oh
going
yeah,
to the gym.
yeah. The football. We got to get those back going again. People are craving the football
Maybe
fantasies.
we'll have to do some live.
A live
next
football
time.
fantasy? That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I could get some notes ready for you to do a live football fantasy.
Yeah.
Fantastic idea. We'll do that. But yeah, so Eddie Lacy, I just don't trust, and I don't buy that he's bouncing back. You know, his whole thing was he did P90X this whole offseason. That's what I do for my workouts, and I'm not saying like I'm in okay shape. I got a decently jacked dad bod or so, but I'm not an NFL player. I'm not going to get hit by running backs, and everyone's praising Eddie Lacy for doing P90X. I mean, come on, like that's what I do, and I'm not like any NFL player by any means. This guy is getting paid millions of dollars to do way more than this. And he said, like, a tweet, like, this is my first time really working out and things like that. Come on, man. You're an NFL player. Like, this is unacceptable, the way he approaches the game. I think he's just an embarrassment, the way he prepares for things. A waste of a good, bulldozing talent, which all this long rant brings me to Thomas Ross, which he's going, 10, 15 rounds later than Eddie Lacy. I think he naturally has more talent. I love Rawls. 16 career starts. 3 of those have been 160-plus yards. So he's personally, won me a game by scoring 45 points. Yeah. It was a joke. I called up my buddy. If Thomas Rawls didn't score 45 today, I'm losing. And he scored 45. So obviously, it's a special place in my heart.
That may have happened to me as well.
He was facing the 49ers. Yeah, there's just no winning if you were facing Thomas Rawls that week. He had 2 TDs, 200 total yards. One of those type of days. You're just like, wow, I'm blessed to have Thomas Rawls. Yeah. One of those type of games. And so he has that type of upside. And he's going in round, 13, 14, 15. I've seen him fall to the end of drafts, sometimes going undrafted. I don't believe in Lacy. I think he'll either get hurt because he's going to be fat or he'll just be ineffective. All the reports on Rawls so far is he's flying around camp looking great. Huge ceiling, I think, for a late round pick. Obviously, you can't start him right away until you know how much work he's getting or if Lacy's truly going to suck. But I think that's just huge ceiling right now, Thomas Rawls, for how late he's going. So that's my running backs. Do you have any running back names? You're like, should I consider this guy? Any guys you're thinking about?
Well, I've been taking some notes.
Yeah, okay.
So I've been trying to do my fair share of research.
There we go.
And then other things will transpire. But the ever so handsome Christian McCaffrey, where would you put him?
So he's not necessarily, we're talking late round. He's going in like rounds
earlier.
Oh,
rounds.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going in rounds 4, 5. I know you
That's
do PPR.
Good to know. Yep.
And he's a PPR monster. Christian McCaffrey, I'm glad he's on your radar.
That's good.
PPR, he's going to catch 70, 80 balls, I think, this year. I mean, there's been clips already. They're on our Instagram and different feeds. We're also going to start our daily stock report up again where we're going to have part of that be the top highlights of the day. There was a highlight yesterday of him catching a ball against Luke Kuechly, one of the top linebackers in the NFL, maybe the best one. Just destroyed him on a route, cut back. Kuechly tried to get a pursuit angle, cut back the other way. I mean, this guy's as shifty as they come. Yeah. We saw that in college. It's already translating on the NFL field against some of the best talents. I absolutely love McCaffrey. I know Jonathan Stewart's there. He'll probably be the main red zone guy. But McCaffrey, he'll probably be on the field with Stewart. He's that talented. He can go in the slot. He can go all over the place. I absolutely love this guy. And we're talking late round guys. He's not a late round guy. That guy is going to be going, rounds 4 or 5, and I think he's absolutely worth it. I'd love to have him as my second running back. I think he brings a ton of upside to the table. So Christian McCaffrey, it seems like a lot of people agree. We're getting a lot of likes for Christian McCaffrey. So I'm glad he's an RSJ guy for sure. We love him here, and we want to make sure he's on everyone's radar. So I'm glad you brought him up. So beyond his good looks, if you like to draft good-looking players, he's a guy that's good-looking and a very intriguing fantasy talent. So I would definitely recommend. You're a PPR guy. And you know what? You said do you know fully on? Are you picked 12? I know that for sure.
So, yeah.
So that's a guy,
possibly.
I think he kind of tends to fall, won't be first or second for you, but round 3, 4, that turn, he's usually hovering right around there. That's where he starts to go. So he's a guy I think you should absolutely look for. I know another guy you love is Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
So, those two PPR guys, I love those two as a potential running back pairing rounds 3 or 4. So those, again, not late round. I know our focus is trying to be late round, but I love those guys, so I'm glad you brought him up. But when we're talking late rounds, so I gave you a couple running backs. Receivers now, a guy I love that's absolutely falling, and the guy we hosted on our podcast, Derek Debro _FFB, I think is his name. He was our third fantasy wolf. he has this guy up at wide receiver 18, which I think is very aggressive. I think that's, way too much. But Tyrell Williams still my high wide receiver 35 range. A guy who's 6'3", runs a 4.34, so absolute burner for the Chargers. And now that Mike Williams is gone, he's kind of has that second role on lock, and yet the ADP prices aren't reflecting that yet.
Right.
So he's a guy that goes really, really late, finishes the wide receiver 16 last year. That was because of Keenan Allen's injury, but still, he's talked a lot about how Keenan Allen's going to open things up for me, which is absolutely true. He's going to command a lot of defensive attention for this guy to truly maximize his jets. He led the league, I think, in ball and catches for 40-plus yards, was second in 25-plus yard catches. So a bona fide deep threat that is going to still, again, see some great work in a pretty explosive passing attack. I love Tyrell Williams. I think he's going way too cheap. A guy you got to make sure you have on your late-round radar. John Brown, a guy we've talked a lot about with Mitchell Renz and different people. They're saying he looks like the John Brown of old, and that he's flying all over the field. Looks like he's ready to truly ascend to that next step of receiver. Mitchell Renz gave us some great stats about it's his 4th year. He's Bruce Arians' guy. Bruce Arians also coached the similarly built and similarly talented Antonio Brown. They have similar skill sets. No way John Brown's Antonio Brown's the greatest receiver in the game, but similar builds, and Arians maximized Antonio Brown's talent after 4 years of working with him. They're saying this could maybe be that 4th year jump for John Brown. So for the Cardinals, a guy I really like. And Taylor Gabriel, going undrafted right now, a guy, he's a big RSJ guy. Gina Thomas came on a podcast mid-season last year and recommended, look at this guy late. He ended up blowing up huge for us, being a wide receiver 2 for the second stretch of the year. One of those guys who, he's a bit boom or bust, but when you throw him in the flex, he's a guy that could win you a week. He has those 150-yard days. They use him on jet sweeps all over the place. I know. Catches, 75-yard TDs all the time. And she came on and said she expects him to be that wide receiver 2, get peppered with looks again. They're going to try to maximize that deep threat speed. Steve Sarkisian, a vertical guy. So those are some receivers on my radar. Any receivers you want to bring up? Some guys you might think are playground guys, or just like Christian McCaffrey.
Well, there's a few questions that have been posed, so I don't know if you want to answer them.
I definitely want to get to those for sure. Let's just wrap up with tight ends too for late rounders.
Got it.
Any receivers though before we get to tight ends, and then we'll do all the questions at once. We'll make sure to do kind of a mailbag.
Ted Ginn Jr.
Ted Ginn Jr. Love that name.
I had him my first fantasy league that I was in. He did rather well. The second time around, I thought about getting him. I didn't get him. What are your thoughts on him? Would he be more of what you would call a
penny stock? Yeah, I think that's an awesome name to bring out, Shamus. I'm glad that's good. You have been doing your research. You've been doing your studying.
I'm trying.
Ted Ginn's a great late round name to bring up.
Okay.
So when we can consider him, and I think he's actually in my draft guide now that I think about it.
Okay.
When I consider him, so he's still got the Jets, 4.3 speed.
Right.
Goes into the Saints offense now, so he leaves the Panthers and goes to go play with Drew Brees, one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. So I absolutely love Ted Ginn. I think he's a great vertical talent, going again with one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in Sean Payton's scheme, which the last decade, so the last 10 years, Sean Payton has been the coach of the Saints. In those 10 years with Drew Brees, they've been the top team in passing yardage 5 of those 10 years. So half of the last decade, the Saints have been the top in the league. They've never finished below 4. So they've always been top 4 and been the top team 5 of those times. So that's a crazy amount of passing yardage. That trend shouldn't just suddenly disappear. They did sign AP. They're going to try to run the ball a little bit more, but they're going to throw the ball. They love throwing the rock. That's their motto. They have Drew Brees. He still has it. And Ted Ginn still has his speed. So Sean Payton said, I have a vision clearly outlined for this guy. They just lost Brandon Cooks, their top vertical threat. So, I don't think this is Brandon Cooks. I don't think it's next coming of him. But you think about the Saints in the past, guys like Devery Henderson or guys that used to burn down the field and have those massive weeks out of nowhere. Ted Ginn becomes one of those guys I think you could throw in the flex. I think he's more talented than Devery Henderson. And camp, Drew Brees is already saying, I'm impressed with both his deep game, but also how quick he is towards the sideline, all these different short routes as well. So Ted Ginn, a guy I think has some very viable and real upside. I think it's a great late round sleeper to bring up. Absolutely. If he's a guy that you've had in the past and you feel connected to, Ted Ginn's a great one. We'll wrap up with a couple tight ends, because this year I think tight ends very deep. I think guys are falling very late. And that's a position that you can, similar to quarterback, we talked about this last week, you can kind of wait on. And because you can stream it, you only start one, so the demand is low. I think the supply is pretty high with some late round tight ends. A few guys I love, an RSJ favorite, Jack Doyle of the Colts, a guy who has won me some games.
Okay.
Whenever Dwayne Allen was out last year, this guy feasted, caught like 9 catches, 78 yards, and a TD against the Titans. I remember starting him against one of my nemesis is Skinny, and that was the key to beating him, was starting Jack Doyle, this nobody. Andrew Luck loves throwing the tight ends in the red zone. That's kind of always been his motto. So Jack Doyle, a guy that goes in round 12 sometimes, around 13 even, that I think brings double-digit touchdown upside to the table. So I love Jack Doyle. Another guy, Julius Thomas, reunited with Adam Gase now in Miami. Had Peyton Manning as his quarterback when these stats came up, but under Gase, I think it's like 24 out of 29 career games. He has 24 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's a ridiculous touchdown output. And they're already saying they have some plays designed specifically for him, that he's kind of tearing up camp a little bit alongside Devontae Parker, another guy I love. I can't consider him a penny stock, but now that name's up there, Devontae Parker, get him on your radar. Love that guy to death. But Julius Thomas could be a threat for double-digit touchdowns going around 13, 14. And the last guy, we talked with Grant Cohen of the Santa Rosa Democrat. He covers the Raiders and the 49ers, and he was saying Jared Cook, their new weapon. He thinks he's going to be the number 3 target there, that he's going to be a prime red zone mismatch. Jared Cook, you got that one? Okay, good. I always love, big, strong guys in offenses that are in the red zone with quarterbacks that can put the ball where they want it. So to me, that's, you look at Martellus Bennett also with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers can throw the ball wherever he wants it. If you got a guy that's 6'5" and nobody else can get there, he's going to catch touchdowns. Jared Cook and Derek Carr could probably present some similar mismatches this year. Bennett's going round 7, 8, and I do love Bennett. I think he brings upside, but we're talking late round. Jared Cook has that similar type of, you can put the ball wherever you want. Derek Carr, I'm a big guy. You can't double me because you got Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree on the outside. Right. I think Jared Cook could have some monster games going and undrafted in a lot of leagues.
Good to know.
So those are the 3 tight ends that I love as penny stocks. Any tight ends that you want to bring up and talk about?
No, that was the one that was actually on my radar.
Oh, okay.
So,
great.
Yeah.
And you said we got some questions. I know you've been tracking
that
for me as we go live.
There's been a few
you.
things. We talked about that it's Tom Brady's day.
Awesome,
and
of course.
I'm really happy that you're also wearing green. That was really nice of you. You're a real loyal Tom Brady fan. Really.
That's why I have these blankets out. I'm going to go change right now, throw on my Brady jersey.
Casey says hello. Hi, Casey. How are you?
What's going on, Casey? Thanks for tuning in.
Getting married. We're going for her bachelorette party.
Oh, where are you guys going
quite soon. Well, I don't know if I can necessarily reveal, but we will be heading out next weekend, so it'll be
very exciting. And are you the planner? I know that's kind of your whole Simply Shamus brand.
No, I have one or two things up my sleeve, but it'll be some fun. We'll be sure to let you know.
What is I don't know if you're willing to share it on air or not. I feel like you've shared some stories with me. What is the wildest bachelorette party you're willing to share with our audience?
Willing
Go as wild as you are willing to. Because I've heard some ridiculous ones out of you, so I think everybody deserves to hear some of these. They're hilarious. Not to put you on the spot.
Well, I can give you some advice. I can give a piece of advice without singling out anyone.
Let's hear it.
I've organized many different party buses, and they give you these contracts like you're signing your entire life away, your firstborn child. It's absolutely obscene. And the number one rule they highlight, it's like size 20 on the contract. Whatever you do, you don't vomit on the bus. So that's the number one thing you tell everyone. You can do whatever happens, don't vomit on the bus. Well, one bachelorette party I went to, we were home free, we're driving home, and what do you know? One bites the dust. Someone did, and it was not me. Not me. So number one rule. Don't vomit on the bus.
Keep that one in mind for all you bachelorette parties out there that are tuning in.
Mike Less would like to know when should we be looking at taking Adrian Peterson?
I love that question.
It's a great question. I know nothing about it. So
you want to turn that one over to me?
Yeah, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
So Adrian Peterson, I love Mike. I think that's a really interesting name. He's going right now around 60, 70. And I think the upside there is enormous for that price range. we talk about him as one of probably the best goal line hammers that this game's ever seen. I mean, he trucks anyone that gets in his path. I know last year we didn't see that. He was kind of injured all year, and different issues. That he only averaged 1.9 yards a carry. So there's that risk. He's 32. He's coming off a horrible season. But this is Adrian Peterson, and this is a guy that is among the most motivated people I've ever seen in my life. When he came off an ACL tear and everyone was doubting that he could fully bounce back, he almost set the league rushing yards. Now, I don't think he's going to actually break records this year in rushing or anything like that. There's too crowded of the backfield with Ingram there, Alvin Kamara impressing as a receiver. So it's going to be a three-headed committee, which is always an issue. But I think his touches are going to be very valuable. He's going to monopolize those red zone touches. His teammates are already raving about him. I wrote an article, actually, Mike, if you want to check this one out. It's called "Why is Adrian Peterson Haunting My Fantasy Dreams?" So I think that was it got some good reception, too. But that article did well. It really details all the positive praise he's generating from his teammates, from his coaches alike. And I think he's a real threat for 12 or 15 touchdowns this year in an offense that's going to always be in the red zone. Again, one of the best goal line hammers out there. I really like Adrian Peterson in that 60-70 range where he's going. He's my RB 20 or so. But like Adrian Peterson, as a solid mid-round guy, and Ingram too, so injury prone. We want to make sure we talk about that. If and when he gets injured and AP takes over, I mean, he's going to be the lead back behind a pretty strong run-blocking line. Again, that explosive offense. He gets Minnesota week 1 as well, and I talked about motivation. That revenge game could be a nightmare for Minnesota fans, and he could rip off 122 TDs, and then it's Adrian Peterson. Who knows?
Love it.
Huge upside though. Definitely a low floor. You want to balance him out with a guy like Tevin Coleman, a higher floor guy, the next pick. But a guy I would love to have on my team this year, Adrian Peterson. What are some other questions we got?
Well, another Christopher Jason, CJ, Cam Meredith, question mark.
Cam Meredith, question mark. I'm glad you brought him up because he's very low in my ranks. Do you know who Cam Meredith is? Is that a name
I
you're
have
aware of?
slight understanding. I probably need to know a little bit more.
Okay. I'm glad you brought him up, CJ, because he's a guy I have very low in my big board right now, and I'm making my updates today and tomorrow. It's going to be released either tomorrow or Monday, the updated big board. Cam Meredith is a guy who's reportedly shining in camp, and he's a guy I wasn't sure could truly win a number one role, but you look at the other talent there, it's Kendall Wright and Marcus Wheaton, and they're saying Cameron Meredith is really emerging above the pack there. And, I don't love Mike Glennon. I don't love the Bears as a whole, but a number one target on any team is always worth noting because volume brings championships. And, he sounds like he's going to be getting a lot of volume, that he's really emerged as the go-to guy. Mike Glennon was singing his praises on NFL Live last night, saying he's starting to emerge as my go-to guy. And, I have him down at like 100 right now. I think he really needs to get a boost up in my rankings. A guy that I think could really, he had some monster efforts last year, even with Matt Barkley. So, I've been saying Mike Glennon's a risk, but is Mike Glennon more of a risk than Matt Barkley last year? I mean, I think I'm too low on Cam Meredith where he is right now, and I think I'm going to be bumping him up in the next big board. So I think that's a great name to bring up, pretty buzzy right now, and someone deserving of a higher ranking than I'm giving him.
Yep, we have some more questions.
Awesome. I love how active you guys are today. This is great.
Amy has joined us. Amy is watching. Hi, Amy.
Welcome, Amy. Thanks
Amy
for tuning in.
Appreciate this question. Question for Shamus.
Let's hear it.
Who is the early favorite for best touchdown dance this year?
What do you
Will
think?
Odell be knocked off the throne? It's such a great question.
That's a great one. Our dancing expert. I'm not going to say a word.
There's
Let's
some
hear it.
really good touchdown dances that happen. I believe during the Dancing with the Stars seasons, I posted several of different people's.
Yeah.
Odell's is pretty, it's pretty solid. I am obviously partial to Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't always celebrate, and I'm not crazy on the belt, but sometimes he does a little something with the arms.
He's got the fist pump every now and again. Like that,
BJ Raji also, I don't know if you've ever looked him up from the Packers.
I know who he is.
Do the Raji. It's actually probably my favorite touchdown dance ever. So I'm not quite.
Raji, okay.
Yeah, he's the best. I'll probably have to post it in my next article. He does a lot of this.
Look at these moves right here, live on air.
And Jimmy would like to end the show.
One guy you didn't bring up though. I want to make sure.
Okay.
I love as a dancer is Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Awesome moves. I think
Victor
his
Cruz,
celebration.
you know,
Victor
he's
Cruz,
got a salsa down.
The salsa.
He's destined for Dancing with the Stars.
Oh yeah, someday he's got a salsa it up on Dance with the Stars. But you know what's exciting is I've been reading the league is going to be more lax on celebrations this year. The No Fun League has been fining people for having a good time on air.
Boring.
But apparently they're going to be a little bit more lax and let more go with celebrations and dances. So that could be actually a funny weekly piece if you want to like grade the end zone dances.
The
top three of the week, and you can kind of critique
dances,
them.
100%.
Coming up with article ideas as we go on air.
And then Jimmy would like us to end the show with with Shamus's go-to touchdown celebration.
Oh, he's gonna show us on air.
I may have to think of my.
Maybe next week.
Certainly something we can get into.
Well, I'll hold the camera and film you next week. You're going to do a live celebration.
Yes, tune in next week, Jimmy, and I will present to you my touchdown victory dance.
Awesome. And we did get one other question, and it was submitted ahead of time, and I love that too. So if you guys ever have questions before, this gives us a little time to prepare. I love the live questions too, so we have to think on our feet.
Yeah.
But we got a question from Mike, which was, who are the best looking players in the NFL? We wanted Shamus to go down the list.
Okay.
And I'll turn that to you. Obviously, I can chime in with any of my thoughts, but I feel like that's definitely a Shamus question in particular.
Right.
And I know you told me you did a little bit of research.
Well, yes, I heard that there were some questions coming in. So then, based off of what we were talking about last week and tiers, and who I should be taking when, and who's an RB1, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 kind of candidate.
It stuck to you. I love it.
I came across this article from TV Guide. Anyone reads TV Guide?
I
don't know. I don't actively read TV Guide. I read Perez Hilton. But they had a few people, so I thought I could just go through a few.
All right, let's do it.
I could sort of rank them on
let's
my
get your personal
tier.
opinion in there,
too.
I
I will give my looks on how I would draft them with the tier, and you could tell me if that's a respectable fantasy football tier.
I love it that you're grouping, like you learn your tiers, so now you're grouping them based on their talent.
Yeah.
Looks.
So I'm going to keep the looks going, but I'm applying the tiers.
I got my tier one.
I'm applying the tiers.
All righty, let's hear it.
I believe it's this list has some former players, current players, so it could get dicey. But Reggie Bush is on this list. I would put him at a tier 3.
Okay. So not your top
3.
tier guy. Okay.
Yeah, no. I would put him at a tier 3.
I don't think he's still in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was on the Bills last year.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's still lingering around. So he's just a mere tier 3 for you. Okay.
Yeah. He's at a tier 3. Next, ironically, is Aaron Rodgers, and that one doesn't even need to be discussed. That's a given.
Is that number 1 on your list? Is Aaron Rodgers just number 1?
He's pretty up there
Who could top him for you? Is he number 1? I mean,
he's up there. Jordy Nelson.
Oh, your
he's
Packers.
Sort of up
the
there.
Packers bias coming out.
And the Christian McCaffrey.
I
put him.
You got many reasons to draft
tier
McCaffrey
1.
this year.
Yeah, tier 1.
Okay.
We have Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I would put him as a tier 2 kind of guy.
Yep. Okay.
Tom Brady.
Go number 1. Happy birthday, love you, Tom.
Right.
He's my number 1 person. I guess it
1.
kind of shows your bias. Is like you're like Jordy Nelson, Aaron Rodgers. I'm like Tom Brady, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman.
Well, Amendola, that's a tier 1. I mean, come on.
He's a stud.
Yeah.
Stud.
Clay Matthews is on this list. Now, if I could draft Clay Matthews, that hair is too good. It's the best. So that would be a tier 1.
That's overvalued.
Yeah.
All right, you keep going. This is your ranking.
Gronkowski, tier 3 in my book. In my regards.
Really?
That would be a tier 3 situation. Colin Kaepernick, that'd be like a tier 7.
Yeah, and these days, have you seen that picture doesn't have his throw?
Eric Decker.
He's got to be up there.
Tier 1.
You know what's funny is our number 1 article on the site, we just posted this randomly, because he scored a touchdown and his wife posted Big Dick Decker for the touchdown, and we wrote an article just a quick little capture oh, Jamie, what's his wife's name? Do you know? She's an absolute dime. If we're talking tiers of good looking, we're not talking football players, she's at the top of the other tiers. Well, I forget her name though.
I don't know. I'll have to look into it.
She's an absolute fox, and she tweeted Big Dick Decker for the TD. So we wrote a quick one oh, Eric Decker is has a scoring all over the place with his big dick. that gets like 15 to 20 hits no matter what day of the week it is, like every single day.
Well,
That's our most viewed article.
Tier one. Tier one.
And there's
all I have to say.
So
we have one final question. CJ, he says, pick one wide receiver on a bad team, PPR.
Okay.
Kenny Britt, Robert Woods, Quincy Enunwa, or Meredith.
So Cam Meredith, like we talked about, I think I put him above those guys pretty clearly. But I think all those names are interesting because, you know, the Jets and the Rams in particular, new offensive coordinators, new young minds that are thought to be a little pass-happy, creative guys with Sean McVay over in the Rams, and I believe the guy's name is John Morton, who came over from the Saints. He was the Saints wide receiver coach to the Jets. And they've talked a lot about, I like Quincy Nuno a lot, they've talked a lot about using a quick strike, higher percentage attack where it's less about option routes and different things. And just you go 5 yards, you catch the ball, and you make a play. And that's all about Nuno's game. He's quick off the ball. He's good with the ball in his hands. So I really like Enunwa. So I would go Meredith Enunwa. And Robert Woods is a very similar player too, though. And McVay, we've seen very explosive attacks over in Washington before. So I think that's a great name to bring up. Could totally see 120 targets as their potential number one there. So all those names I really like. Do you remember who the last one was? I know it was Enunwa, Robert Woods, Meredith. Kenny Britt.
Kenny Britt.
He's a guy that's not
Don't
as
know
much.
who that is, by the way, I'll be honest.
He's on the Browns, and
Okay.
I would like him a lot more if Deshaun Kaiser wins that because he's willing to chuck it. He's got a strong arm, and Britt's already said this guy has the talent to be one of the greats, which obviously is hyperbole and exaggeration, but it goes to show those two are building a good rapport. So Britt, a guy who's not really on my radar at all right now, but totally could have some value. I think all four of those names, CJ, were great for late round drafts. Some of those are definitely already in my penny stock list, and some might join there if they have strong camps. Kenny Britt was the wide receiver 17 through 15 weeks last year, and then he got hurt and missed the last two. But he's a very productive guy with a crap team at the Rams last year. So he goes from one crap team to the other, probably their number one target. So I think all four of those names are great to bring up. And again, I'd rank them probably Meredith, Enunwa, Woods, and Britt. But I think all four are great to track over camp, and that's a very fluid ranking. I'm not locking that in by any means.
Right, got it.
So, interesting question. Any more questions up there? It looks like
Any more questions?
we're wrapping up with that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anymore.
Alrighty,
It
so
doesn't seem like that.
I love that. It seemed like we had a lot more engagement this week, though, in terms of questions and different things. Again, submit some more questions so Shamus can do his research beforehand if you got questions about looks, anything like that. But it was another great show. Again, we talked a lot about late round fantasy strategy, maximizing that ceiling in the late rounds. Don't worry about those low ceiling, high floor players. I'm not worried about those guys, those Matt Fortes, Jeremy Hills, the guys when it's, round 15 and people are just like, oh, I recognize Matt Forte's name, boom. That's useless, doesn't matter. You're worried about those high ceiling, those rookies who might take over the job, like Joe Williams, the Jamal Charles, the veterans that are going late but have historically been such good talents, and now they're in good schemes. And we talked about Rawls, all these different names. We won't run them all down again, but that's the goal with those late round strategies. So next week, and if you guys like what you saw, I don't know if there's a subscribe button on here while you're watching, but if you're not a member of the Roto Street Journal Facebook page, we'd love your support. If you want to follow our page, that'd be fantastic. You'll get the update as soon as we go live. We tweet out, when we're going to go. It's every 10 a.m. We have some more shows coming up too for Facebook Live shows. So if you like this format, if you like what you're hearing, just make sure you follow us. Give us that follow. You can also check us out on Twitter, Roto ST Journal. I personally am Roto Street Wolf on Twitter. What's your handle again?
Simply Shamus.
Simply Shamus. So for all your wedding party, bachelorette needs.
Just my everyday shenanigans.
Some dancing, fun, all that good stuff. You can follow Simply Shamus. And yeah, just the more we can do, any feedback on the show. I've gotten a lot of feedback. I'm doing it as we speak about my hand motions being too aggressive.
It's okay, you're just
that I
a
don't
little
look
expressive.
at the camera enough.
It's
Pat
okay.
Bailey gave me that
It's
feedback,
okay.
and I think it's great. I love it, and I still I consciously try to think of it, and then I'm still just like hands.
We should do a
all over
standing
the
session
place.
at some point.
Yeah,
That could be quite wild.
Maybe that would help us out a little bit with that. So any feedback, though, that you guys have to help us get better at this, obviously it's our kind of first whirl at these things, and we love it so far. We're entertaining each other, at least, and it seems like we're entertaining you guys who keep tuning in. And make sure you're back at 10 a.m. next Thursday. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and Have a great rest of your week.